everybody can see my slides and can see me and hear me as well.
Yeah.
Thanks for the introduction, invitation. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening for everyone. And today I would like to talk to a topic which might be interest for all of us. It's the aging process. Could you go to the second slide, please? So in this context, so today I would like to tell you my own perspective about the definition of aging process. And also I would like to answer a couple of questions. For example, is it possible to reverse aging? If not, what is the important elements which play a role in aging process? And how one could tune those key elements in order to achieve healthy aging. Is it possible to go to next slides? One more. All right, so now what is aging? I guess everybody knows what is aging. Once upon a time we were kids, so our shape starts changing, and then the strength starts increasing when we reach certain age and certain threshold, and then we start losing strength, and then after that we start losing memory. So these three elements, shape, strength, memory, are very important and very well connected to aging. And indeed, many scientists look at aging as it is a precursor of disease. So there are many aging-related diseases. Next slide. So there are many scientists, they think that if they could find ways how to eradicate aging, in this way, they could really solve so many problems in one shot. And that's why many research and many hypotheses and theories have been put to either reverse aging next or stop aging. And now, next slide. So one of those theories are radical. So radical, as many knows, that this is a highly reactive molecules which destroy DNA, proteins, and lipids. And the recommendation is just to fight radicals with anti-radical, and that's why we take so many antioxidants and we're still getting old. The other possibility, aging is playing a role with this mutation or DNA breakage, and indeed, this is a very important topic because we know there's changing mutation, changing the information on the DNA sequence and then proteins function and so on. And therefore, there are many groups whom they are involved in DNA repair mechanism to understand how one can repair DNA if it is broken or if it is getting defected. Hopefully, this will help improving in a way that's, I don't know, either reducing aging, slowing it down, or stop it at certain points, which is not easy as well. The other point is shortening of telomeres, and telomeres are G-rich sequence which are located at the end of each chromosomes. Usually they protect chromosomes, and it's interesting whenever cells are divided, the telomere length start getting short and short till it reaches certain length that cell cannot divide anymore, and then chromosomes start fused with each other. And another possibility, it has to do with epigenetics, stem cells, mitochondrial dysfunctions, and stress and lifestyles. But in reality, scientists put so many factors which connect to aging, and then of course they come to conclusion that aging is a multi-factor and it's a complex process which is not easy to control. Now, go to the next slides now. So now let us have another thought about aging. And we know that, I said in the beginning, take these three elements, shape, strength, and memory. And let's try to understand aging from molecular perspective and correlate shape with structure, strength with function, and memory with information. Our goal is how to find a connection between structure, function, and information. Next. So, now, if you just bring someone, keep him or her in a room, provide him all necessary things for life and health, the best food, antioxidants, sports, and no stress, and you come back after 20 years, you'll find this person has been changed. So we come to conclusion that aging is really a spontaneous and a natural process connected to time. There is no way really to stop aging or to reverse aging unless we have to either stop or reverse time, which is not possible unless we can move with the speed of light, and then the time effect will be highly diluted, which is impossible currently. Now, the concept of spontaneous, what is really spontaneous mean exactly? Now, in a simple word, spontaneous means something will take place, whether you like it or you don't like it. Now, to understand this concept much better, it's good to connect it to a process in our bodies, which well known to be as spontaneous. Next slide. So it's known that catabolic process is a process which is spontaneous and taking place in our body, whether we like it or not. So what is, to understand catabolic reaction, let's look at it from molecular perspective. In general, we have a large molecule, could be carbohydrate, lipid, proteins, and DNA. And when it goes through catabolic process, then those large molecules are broken down into many small molecules. And indeed, those small, now, if you look at those large or macromolecules in general, they are well defined. And then when they go through catabolic, each one molecule generate many small molecules. Now, take the example of carbohydrates, which will be hydrolyzed in our body to generate glucose. And now glucose is a well-known, process which generate ATP in our body, and this is very important process. Now, if you look at glucose structure, it is very well defined with regard to constitution. It is a glycopyranose. With regard to configuration, it has 5 chiral centers where all the hydroxyl group are oriented in axial orientation. With regard to the conformation, it is in a chair conformation. And when it goes through catabolic process, all these constitution, configuration, conformation is lost. And one molecule of a glucose generates 6 molecules of carbon dioxide, which is gas. Now, what has been changed? Indeed, we have increased the rotation, vibration, and translational motion of the molecules. And those motions create collisions, and this collision create heat. Now, the potential energy, which was stored in glucose in form of constitution, configuration, conformation, is partially lost. And this potential difference has been partially stored in form of ATP, and the rest has been converted into entropy and released in form of heat. Now, both ATP and heat is essential for our body because ATP is needed for biological process, and heat is needed to maintain temperature in our body, 37 degrees. And this process is spontaneous, means it is independent of energy available, and it is driven by entropy. And since entropy is always accumulated and there is no way to stop it, and it is also no way to reverse it back, and this makes really reverse aging almost impossible. But we can fight entropy with anti-entropy. Anti-entropy is a potential energy. Next. Now, when we think of potential energy, we think of the anabolic system, anabolic reaction. Anabolic reaction, it is a growth reaction. Take, for example, a DNA, which is basically could be formed from these initial deoxyribose units. Now, this reaction is not spontaneous. It is non-spontaneous. It is energy dependence. That's why it is endothermic reaction. If there is no energy available, anabolic reaction will not take place. Now, if we correlate this process with the aging concept, next, we will notice in general when we were kids, anabolic process is more dominant than catabolic process, and that's why we are in the process of building potential. And now when we reach a certain age where we have our growth is completed and anabolic, catabolic process are working in compatible way, and then once we start getting old, then anabolic process reduce and catabolic process remain all the time. And this is the problem where aging starts really getting announced for people. And next, and if really we want to think how to do something with regard to aging, we have to find ways how to activate, sorry, go back. We have to find ways how to activate the anabolic process. And activating anabolic process is a big challenge, especially when we pass certain age. But this is good. If we can do it, we can collect all those small molecules, which has high disorder, and then build highly potential molecule, which with well-known structure, function, and information. Next. Now, the concept of potential energy and entropy, well, it is difficult to understand entropy without correlating it with potential energy. Potential energy, it is a process where molecules are really traveling in a direction, mainly in highly ordered direction. And usually they generate work. Whereas in case of entropy, the molecules or ions or particles, they're moving or traveling in all directions. And this create collisions between molecules, and these collisions create heat. Now, why heat is bad? Next. Heat is bad because if temperature is, well, heat usually increase temperature body. Now, if heat is increased in our body, usually it starts breaking down the intramolecular forces in macromolecules like proteins. Now, proteins, usually they have a well-defined constitution, configuration, and conformation. Once heat is increased, then it goes, the proteins start denatured. So although we still maintain configuration, constitution, but we start losing the conformation. And then we start having a sort of residues which are moving strongly. In reality, we are increasing entropy. And if entropy is increased, quickly potential is decreased because potential energy and entropy are inversely proportional. And if it is denatured, then it will have to fall back once again. And if this process repeated many often, and then we have a misfolded proteins, if it is accumulated, this is indication of all aging-related diseases. Now, next. Well, my opinion is really we have to look at aging from holistic point of view. That's why I have introduced a new concept in medicines called halallopathy or permissible medicine. Next. And the goal of this medicine is really, next slide, please, is really how to build potential in our body. So we have to accelerate our anabolic process, and we have to fight entropy by slowing down catabolic process. And next slide, next. And this has to do with our immune system. So the goal is how to make our immune system always in the fighting mode. Now, the fighting mood, this is the mood where our body can detect any error and can be repaired because we have enough potential energy available. I'm not going into detail of this. I have written a publication. You can read it in detail because the time is very strict. Please go to the next slide. In the next slide, I just wanted to introduce these points because catabolic process produce heat. And now this heat will not and need not to stay in our body for longer time. And we have to rationalize, or we have to make a sort of heat management in our body. It has to do now, this heat management has to do with our external temperature. Our body temperature is 37. If around us is 30, the difference is very small, then the heat flow is very slow. And then when the heat flow is very slow, this is stress, and this is not good, and this will always increase entropy on the long run. And therefore, our body can naturally try to resist this temperature difference by activating this sweeting process and cool body temperature, or we have to put our body in water to assist our body in losing this extra heat in our body. The other possibility, of course, when temperature is around 20, this is the best temperature difference between body temperature and outside, and the heat flow is standard. So the amount of heat which is generated and it is lost outside is almost the same, and that's why we can do the best job when the temperature is around 20. But when the temperature, again, it is also very cold, then the temperature difference is very high, and then the heat flow is very fast. This is also not good because we have to compensate the heat lost in our body, and then this will accelerate the catabolic process again. And accelerating the catabolic process means that we have to accumulate entropy, and entropy, based on the second law of thermodynamics, it's always increasing, and there is no way really to stop it or to reverse it back. And if we correlate entropy to aging, this means that also aging, we cannot really reverse it or we cannot stop it. Now, go next, please. So as I said, if you want to maintain good health, we have really to maintain our immune system always in the fighting mode. And for this, we have to build potential. And to build potential, there are many things we have to do. I'm not going in detail of all of this because, again, the time is very limited, but we have really to activate our growth factors. Growth hormones are essential, and this could be done usually by making selective in the way how you sleep. You have to sleep enough, for example. You have really how to think positive. All of this has connection. You have to do sports, of course. You have to avoid these catabolic thinking, and you have to be selective in your food selection. It is compatible to your lifestyle and need to be biodegradable. Stress, we have to fight entropy by fighting grief and fear. And this is how we can maintain our immune system in the fighting mode. If you want to read more details, please go to next. I have written a couple of publications to address all these issues, which include immune system, aging, and so on. And in the end, thanks for your attention.